Let's talk some chess. We're going to talk about my favorite gambit to play, the Halloween Gambit. It is so named because it's a very boring opening, and it looks like just going to be, a very boring standard game. And then you play this crazy move that scares your opponent, and that's sort of the idea behind the name. So the way the game starts off is just the four knights game. Both sides get their knights out, and you have pawns on e4 and e5. So you've probably seen this many times in your games, which is why I like to play it, because I have the opportunity to play it a lot. And here, black is expecting a normal move like bishop to c4, developing naturally, preparing to castle. But this is where the Halloween Gambit begins, and it is with knight takes on e5. And this is a crazy-looking move, and this is the spooky move, the scary move, because it looks like you're just giving away a knight on e5, and indeed you are. And if black accepts the sacrifice, then the gambit has officially begun, or officially entered. And now the idea here is you play d4, attacking the knight. And this is sort of the central idea behind most gambits, or I guess all gambits, where you give up a little bit of material. So you have a material disadvantage, but you're trying to get an advantage in other ways. So rapid expansion, control of the center, a great attack against the enemy king. With the Halloween Gambit, it's sort of getting a really strong pawn center and getting really rapid development of your minor pieces. And hopefully those, turn into an attack against the enemy king, but strong center with the pawns and development. And as always, if you're playing against a really high-powered computer, a gambit will never work because a computer will play perfect defense, but humans sometimes don't play perfect defense, and that's why gambits can be fun, and you can turn like a material disadvantage into an advantage on the board. So here's the first crucial moment in the Halloween Gambit, basically where black decides to move this knight, which is under attack. And I've seen often a very aggressive move putting the knight on g4, and if black puts the knight on g4, you've already got your advantage back. The idea here is, black is thinking that the two knights are protecting each other. The queen is attacking the knight on g4, but it's protected by the knight on f6. But this is easily remedied by just playing e5, attacking this knight. And now if this knight moves, then the knight on g4 is hanging. So you've won your piece back and you have a development advantage. So here the best line to continue for black is bishop to b4, pinning the knight, but now you just take with a pawn. And after knight takes and bishop to d3, this is better for white. You have two pieces out, a central pawn still on d4, and you're ready to castle. So you've already sort of equalized the material and have a slight positional advantage. So it's great when someone plays knight to g4. It doesn't happen often. The move that I see more often, which also leads to an advantage for white, is just bringing the knight back to c6. So it kind of makes sense. You took on e5 with the knight, and now you just retreat it. You just retreat it back to c6. But this isn't a great move either, and this leads to a more sort of fun attacking game for white because it allows the immediate d5. So you see, we're just sort of making these pawn moves and forcing this knight to move around. So not supposed to go that way, it goes this way, d5, and you're moving these pawns up the board, you're creating a strong center, and black is just wasting all the moves by trying to sort of save this knight. This knight can retreat to b8, but now you have an undeveloped knight, and there's a lot of great expansion that can happen with the white pieces. So instead, the proper move here is knight to e5, but now another pawn move attacks the knight again, f4, and now you have this beautiful center with these three pawns, and the knight has to go to g6. And now you stop attacking that knight for a moment, but you play e5, so just pushing onwards with this pawn. Now you're attacking this knight, and again, there's nothing black can do but just keep moving the knights around. And here there's really no square. You can't take on d5 because the queen is protecting. You can't move to g4 because then the queen, of course, will take. Same with g5. This knight to g5, the queen will take. So the only move here is to just fully retreat the knight to g8, and now you can sort of see, even though white is down a knight, these three pawns are awesome. Black has just all the pieces on the back rank except for this knight, and here you actually just keep pushing onwards with the pawn. So just a ton of pawn moves, which is always really fun, just to move all the the pawns toward the enemy king. So pawn to d6, and now pawn takes on d6, pawn takes back on d6, and you've broken up your pawn chain, but the nice thing here is that this pawn can't be taken because the queen defends it. So this pawn is just really going to be a thorn in the side of your opponent. It's controlling the e7 square, also the c7 square, but more importantly e7, which is a natural development square for the bishop, the queen, and the knight. So it really, really cramps black's position. So just an awesome pawn to have. And this is already looking very difficult, to play with the black pieces. So here, if you play, the best move is queen to. Is there another move I wanted to show here? Yeah, so for example, like if black tries to get the knight back out into the game with h6, then you have queen e2 to e2 check, and this is like basically if black makes any move other than the proper move, which is queen to f6. So let's say that you get knight to h6, then you get queen to e2 check, and this is a really annoying check to deal with because anything you block with is at the mercy of this pawn on d6. So here you have to block with the bishop, but then you just get pawn takes bishop. And now this is an annoying pawn. It's attacking the queen, and you've equalized your material, right? Because you now have taken you're down a knight, but you've taken a bishop, so material is equalized. After knight takes, then this looks very fun to play for white. I mean, knight to d5 is an idea, developing the bishop, even pushing the pawn, and then opening up an attack with the bishop on the knight sounds good as well. Although I guess you can't really push the pawn because the knight can take, but this is fun to play with the white pieces. So again, this is sort of a little bit of a tricksy position with the black pieces, and you can move the queen to e2 if you don't see queen to f6, which is the proper move to defend here for black. And now you still play this queen to e2 check, but now you can block with the queen on e6 instead of blocking with the queen on e7 where the pawn can take. So after the queen blocks, then you bring the knight to b5, and again you can just feel like all the different attacking options that white has. So here after a queen trade, then the knight is threatening to come to c7, forking the king and the rook. So you're going to get rook to b8, protecting the rook from the fork. But now you get the bishop developing very naturally to e3, and now you're attacking this pawn, and this is kind of annoying. Maybe you can push the pawn, but now knight here is check, and that's not really fun to deal with. So already, just a really, this is a really powerful knight, of course. So really fun attacking chances here in this line. I think that's all I wanted to show with that line. Yeah. So that's kind of what you get into if going all the way back. If after knight takes, if the knight retreats to c6, you push the pawns forward, you get an attack going, and you sort of get this really nice pawn on d6, which is super powerful. We're going to see that in this line too. So the proper line, what a computer will play, the most robust defense against the Halloween Gambit, is bringing the knight to g6. Your opponent won't play this often because it's kind of a funny looking move. I find that knight to c6 is the best. We just went over that line. It's good for white. This is the best and most robust defense, but it does lead still to some attacking chances for white. So you can play e5 here. Again, same idea, moving the pawns, attacking this knight. Sometimes black decides to give up a knight here to relieve the tension, but that's just way better for white. So don't do that if someone's playing the Halloween Gambit against you, because then you have to move this knight, and now this is just way better. So usually what happens is the knight retreats to g8, and this is the same idea as before, where there's one knight out and the other knight has retreated, but this is slightly worse than the last line we saw because you only have two pawns instead of this f pawn was up as well. So here the idea is to bring the bishop out to c4, and again, natural development, rapid development. We have two pawns, a bishop eyeing f7 here, and here it's actually kind of difficult to find the proper move with the black pieces. There's a lot of moves that look okay but lead to a disadvantage. So this is another natural point where if your opponent isn't careful, you can really jump with an advantage. And again, the proper move, we'll see why, is c6, but this is not an obvious move to play if you're defending this position, right? There are many moves that look better. So for example, I think knight to h6 looks better, getting this piece out. But basically in every iteration that we're going to see, so knight to h6 is one. Another one I think is d6, trying to break up this pawn structure. Another one is bishop to e7. All of these, let's go with d6. The response for white is always going to be the same. It's queen to f3. And the issue now is you have this threatening mate in one with the queen and the bishop on f7, and now black is at a huge disadvantage because you have to sort of guard against that. So you get queen to e7 here, protecting the f7 square, but after white castles, pawn takes on d5, but now knight to d5. And this knight to d5 move is good no matter sort of, what is guarding the f7 square. Basically, I think, yeah, what's nice about this, what did I want to? Yeah, this is the most natural way. Queen to e7 is the most natural way to defend f7. So after castles and pawn takes, this knight to d5 move is super powerful. And again, this is just a really nice attacking combination. You're attacking the queen, you're attacking this. If the c7 pawn is undefended, that's a fork between the king and the rook. But when the knight moves, you're also opening up, you know, a discovered sort of attack on this f7 pawn, so just really difficult. And after the queen moves to d7, so attacking the knight, which is defended, but protecting this pawn still, so the knight can't fork, and still protecting the f7 pawn. Now you just get d takes on e5, and this is just looks way more fun to play. I mean, you know, the bishop can get into the game. The rooks can get into the, you know, the rook can line up with the queen on the d file. There's just a lot of pressure here, and none of black's pieces are doing a good job defending. So this is a case of, you know, how, you know, again, like getting an attack going and getting a really powerful sort of attack against the enemy king. So going back to this position, again, I said that this is sort of a key turning point where black can make a lot of wrong moves. Same thing happens with knight to e7. Again, this queen move is super powerful, eyeing this f7 pawn. The only way to stop that attack is by playing the proper move, which is c6. Again, a hard move to find, so it's impressive if your opponent finds it. But if they do, you still play queen to f3. So it's easy to remember. It's always going to be the idea, is doubling up on this f7 pawn. The reason that this c6 move works to defend it is because now you have d5 blocking the bishop. So this is, you know, you're simultaneously blocking and attacking the bishop, and this is the proper way to defend against this attack. You play en passant, takes on d6, but now because there's no pawn on e5, black has this knight to f6 move. So that's sort of why this combination of defense works, where you want to block with a pawn, which forces white to take en passant, which forces, you know, which allows knight to f6, and now this blocks the queen and the bishop. So again, this is the proper way to defend, but your opponent often won't, so take advantage of those like instances where they make a slight mistake and get an attack going. So here you want to check with the queen on e2. King has to move to d7. There's, you know, you don't want to block. Again, same issue. Anything you block with, if you block on the e7 square, then the pawn's going to take, and that's no fun. So the king moves to d7, but now you push d5, and again, these are tough kind of moves to meet, because if you don't play the right move with the black pieces, it's going to be just an avalanche of attack. So here c takes on d5, but now you develop the bishop to g5, and again, all very natural moves, getting the pieces out, developing them, and here you actually can sacrifice your bishop. We'll see why. So let's say pawn takes bishop on c4. I'm going a little bit faster now because we're later into the line. Then you just castle kingside. The king is super safe now. The rook is protecting the very important d6 pawn, and these pieces are going to do a great job attacking the enemy king. So here, there's a couple of moves that black can play, but the only one that really works is this queen to a5 move. For example, if black plays b6, trying to fianchetto this bishop and, you know, get some counterplay going, then the game is like almost over. You have this queen takes on c4 move, just threatening a bunch of things, threatening this pawn. After you fianchetto the bishop, then you can take with the bishop to get this knight off the board. Pawn takes, and now queen to g4 check. King has to move to e8 because there's really not many squares you can come here, but this doesn't look very good. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. No. Very sad. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Boom, boom. Yeah. Queen check, king comes to e8, and now the rook to e1 check, and this is a super powerful check. You're going to have to block with something. You're going to have to block with one of these pieces, and you're going to lose it to the pawn. So, again, just like if black makes one wrong move, then it's the attack gets really strong. So the correct move here, again, kind of hard to find, is queen to a5. And I think that's pretty much good to show. Yeah, this is getting deeper into the position, so that's a good. I'll stop there. But the couple ideas that I really want to focus on are just the start of, you know, you give away your knight on e5. After knight takes, you push the pawn. If the knight moves to c6, then you're awesome. You can just push the pawns and attack these knights and get a real awesome attack going. If black makes the correct move, which is knight retreats to g6. Then you're going to reach this point where you have the bishop on c4, and if black makes the incorrect move here, if black doesn't play c6, then you're back. You're all set because you can bring the queen to f3, and this is a really powerful combination against this pawn. So a lot of opportunities to get an attack going, and even if you don't, you're going to have a lot of pieces out. The enemy king will be in the center of the board, so a lot of chances for attacks, and hopefully you enjoy this video. It's kind of the first one I'm doing of this type, but hopefully it inspired you to play some Halloween Gambit, try it out, and beat your opponents in a spooky way. So thanks for watching. Drop a like, drop subscribe, and we'll see you next time.